It's your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to have you guys back again. Buckle up. I know we talk weather a little bit at the start of the show sometimes, but man, it's going to get nasty out there for the next few days. If you're traveling, hope you have safe travels. Be smart. Make all the right choices. If you're staying put, hunker down. Get some groceries. Get some stuff to do, and just ride it out for a few days. We'll have some good podcasts for you to listen to. At the very least, that's something you can do inside, and stay warm and stay healthy and stay happy and have a wonderful holiday. Like I said, there's still a couple shows left this week. No shows next week as we take a little holiday break, but that's in the future. Right now in the present, we got a lot of stuff to bring you today. Paul Allen from KFAN from Vikings, obviously. Radio play-by-play voice, Canterbury track announcer. He's got a lot of different jobs, wears a lot of different hats. Really interesting conversation I had with him the other day, and I wanted to play that for you, just about his style this Vikings season and just how he got here, how he got to this position in this market. Really enjoyed sitting down with him, someone I've talked to plenty of times over the years, of course, but never had on this show. Also, a little Sam Steele appreciation at the end of the show today, too, because he has been quite a find for the Wild this season and has really given them a spark as the top-line center lately. And, someone who was not on my radar at the start of the season, and so I want to catch up to that a little bit. First, though, what did I miss? There aren't many stories that I go to bed at night and then wake up in the morning and, I shouted. I said, "What?" When I opened up, I think it was ESPN that I saw it on first. Carlos Correa no longer signing with the Giants. There was some scuttlebutt yesterday that there was some discrepancies in his physical, that they had postponed a news conference to announce his 13-year, $350 million contract with the Giants. It was raised some eyebrows a little bit. It was a little bit suspicious, including because it was only the Associated Press that was reporting it. And, a solid source, of course. That's kind of the gold standard, but none of the usual baseball insiders were reporting it, and it kind of made you wonder, what else might be going on here? What's going on here with this story? And then overnight, news breaks that he is signing instead with the Mets for 12 years, $315 million. So now, kind of scratching my head. You're kind of looking at it sideways, like, okay, what exactly does that mean for the Twins' pursuit of Correa, which was ongoing, which the Twins thought they had a chance to retain him after signing him before the 2022 season for, what was a 3-year, $105 million deal, but it was ostensibly a 1-year, $35.1 million deal because it had 2 opt-outs, and Correa was never going to opt back in as long as the market was good, as long as he had a good season. And so I'm sitting here wondering now, okay, what exactly do we know now about his intentions? And I think it's pretty clear to look at his intentions right now, Carlos Correa's intentions, and know that there was never any way that he was going to sign with the Twins. If your take at the beginning was the Twins got played, which was my take from the beginning, it has to be even stronger now because the Twins' final offer was 10 years, $285 million. They had already given him 35 last year. If they had given him all of that in one lump sum, it would have been 11 years, $320 million. More money than the Mets ended up giving him for one less year. So I think you can see this right now. Carlos Correa wanted to go to a big market. He wanted to cross a certain dollar amount right now. But I think the Twins, if the Twins had known that 315 was, a benchmark, maybe they could have gone there. I don't think it would have mattered, though. I think it's pretty clear that Carlos Correa was going to sign with a big market team and that the Twins were just being used for negotiating purposes. Now, the other piece of this is the difference between a big market team and a small market team. The Mets swoop in with their billionaire owner, Steve Cohen, comes in and nabs Correa and negotiates the deal yesterday. And he told the New York Post, "We need one more thing. That's it. This was important. This puts us over the top. This is a good team. I hope it's a good team." Mets are going to have a payroll of like almost $400 million next season. Like, can you even fathom that? And that means they're going to be about $100 million over the tax threshold, which means they could be in line for a tax bill of over $100 million next year. And you know what Steve Cohen told the New York Post regarding that? Quote, "What the heck's the difference? If you're going to make the move, make the move." And that, folks, right there is the difference between the Mets and the Twins, is the difference between a large market team and a middle market team. Derek Falvey last week, talking about losing out on Correa to that deal with the Giants, said maybe that 13 years, quote, that was what tipped the scales. Maybe I'm just telling myself this, but maybe it took an offer of that length to get him to want to leave, to have that kind of gap in the offers. No, I guess not. I guess it wasn't a deal that big. It was a deal shorter and $35 million less that got him to go to New York. So I don't know. I don't know what the lesson here is in all this. I think the biggest lesson maybe is that beware when you are dealing with a big free agent that maybe you think you can get. Beware when you are dealing with Scott Boras, the agent who was only out for his client's longest, most lucrative deal. Always stay in the game. I mean, this was interesting because the Giants deal seemed like it was rock solid, and the Mets obviously don't have the same problems with the physical that the Giants did. And here we go. Now he's going to go to the Mets. So the Twins are at least the third place team in the Carlos Correa sweepstakes, if not more than that. And I'm still questioning whether they really had a chance at him at all. Just a really disappointing way for this to go, and a really interesting turn of events. A shocker that he is now going to the Mets.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
It is my pleasure to welcome Paul Allen onto today's Daily Delivery. You guys know him probably better as PA. You might know him more as voice of the Vikings, KFAN, morning personality, Canterbury, track announcer. Man, you got a lot going on your plate. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how you have time for everything you do. But man, I want to talk Vikings first off. First off, before that even, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Michael. And I don't know what's bigger, the Vikings comeback against the Colts from 33 down, or that microphone in front of your head.
It's huge. It's one of the two. Nobody can see it because we generally only do audio only, but we are looking at each other via Zoom right now. And you're looking at my giant mic. I think a lot of it's the angle of my webcam, but it is a giant microphone, and I appreciate that. So what you've been in the middle of this Vikings season. You've been calling games for a long time, couple decades now. A lot of famous calls over the years. From your perspective, being as close as you are to this, first off, before we get into the professional element of it, what do you make of what you've seen in these 14 games this year?
I thought you were going to say, you've done it a couple of decades, been in the middle of a couple of big calls. How much money do you make? Well, this one, they're all different, and they're all different for different reasons, but they're all in the same fishbowl. They're just under different rocks. Now, this one has been less algae filled than some others. And in all the years I've done this, the 2009 Vikings with Brett Favre,
yes.
Granted, the way it ended in the NFC title game, it wasn't preferred, but it was an unbelievably memorable season. It was sort of like smack dab in the middle of my career. This one rivals that. And I'm not going to say it's hitting me more deeply or more sentimentally than that one, because that 09 team with Brett Favre and Adrian Peterson, Rookie of the Year Percy Harvin, Jared Allen was a huge personality. It had a bunch of rock star, big personalities and just iconic stars.
Sure.
And I'm not saying this one doesn't, because Jefferson is that and is on the fast track to really being as big as he wants to be. But this is just more of a collective situation where, if the defense is having problems, the offense hangs big numbers. If the offense is slow, the defense has picked it up. And like when we were in London and needed a spark, the rookie punter threw it to the rookie receiver, Jalen Naylor,
right.
And that pumped up the whole sideline. So this has been a lot of fun. I've really, really enjoyed myself. It's probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite seasons on the microphone, or just being around the facility of all the ones I've done.
And there's been a lot of memorable calls. I'll get into those in a minute. But I mean, just the nature of this season, I tried to articulate this on an earlier episode, I think, this week. I think Vikings fans come at seasons with a certain either skepticism or expectation, whatever it might be, whatever the tone of a season might be going in. And it felt like this one, there was a curiosity, but it was also like, I don't think people expected this to be an 11-3 team right now. And certainly the way they've won these games suggests that maybe they shouldn't even be 11-3, just if you're going to look at it in terms of winning all of these close games. But yet here we are. So I feel like this is the rare season where by the end of this season, regardless of how it ends, and if it ends with the ultimate, obviously it's going to be remembered a lot differently. But I think people have a possibility to appreciate this season for what it is far more than a lot of other seasons, just because the expectations were different and the process has been so different than, even than 2017, where it's like, you got to get to the Super Bowl at US Bank Stadium, for 2009. It was like, it's Brett Favre. They got to get to the Super Bowl. Like, I don't think people are treating this the same way.
Yeah, I think you laid that out eloquently and perfectly, because, doing the KFAN 9 to noon show and interacting with fans, either via Twitter, talkbacks, calls, or whatever. They did come into the season. Curiosity is the perfect word for what it was like into the season. Well, then they beat Green Bay. So that's going to buy you a lot of emotional chips.
Yes.
Probably through September and October, simply by beating the rival, but also beating the team to beat and the target at which to shoot every single year in the NFC North. So then you go to Philadelphia and you get killed on Monday Night Football. So a lot of people saw that. The Dallas loss was the big afternoon nationally televised game, and once again they got dropped. So the curiosity then went to a fascination and kind of a reserved, all right, this isn't anything like what I thought it was going to be. The quarterback's numbers aren't as good as they have been,
right?
But he's making the best throws he's ever made in his life.
Yes.
Zadarius Smith sacks the quarterback, once or twice every game, at least earlier in the season. But then when they got mauled by Dallas, I just sensed from the local fan base, it was mostly, okay, they're going to make the playoffs, but I've seen how bad it can look. Right. So I'm just going to follow it from afar and not get super emotionally invested until they get in the playoffs and win a playoff game. Now, interestingly, I moved here full-time in 98, so I'm not a lifetime Minnesotan. Okay. But the Minnesota dwelling over, the worst is bound to happen with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, it's en vogue. It's a habit state, and it pops up all the time. So I understand it. But it hasn't happened that much this year with the people with whom I interact, because they beat Green Bay out of the gate. The record's really good. They're already division champions. They're vying to have 2 home playoff games if possible. Yes. Maybe the 1 seed, who knows? So I think fans are just really appreciating the different nature of what they're seeing this year, and they're just really digging it, Michael.
I think you're right, and that's a difference from past years, because my history with the Vikings goes back probably even further and into the 80s growing up, watching them play, and it is a different kind of year. Now, you referencing coming here in 98 is a good entry point for me to ask you about something I wanted to ask you about. Just what I think people are familiar with your path, but you've been here long enough, people probably forget your story. Paul Allen, how did you get this job and get to this market, and what has made you stay here?
Well, the only way to answer it is being a Christian and somebody where the Bible's very important to me. Mm-hmm. It honestly is through the grace of God that I have these jobs. I mean, I didn't go to college. I'm a racetrack announcer by trade. I was traveling all over the country calling horse races like I do at Canterbury Park, San Francisco, Grand Island, Nebraska, Shakopee, and I did that Gypsy Trail for 5 years. Well, in 97, KFAN was doing radio shows at Canterbury, and that was my that was like my 5th year there, and I was still doing the Gypsy Trail. Doug Westerman, the former program director, asked me, "Do you know anything about sports?" And I said, "Yeah, I follow it pretty closely." So then I would come on their Saturday shows from Canterbury in 97.
Okay,
somebody heard something they liked. The sports update guy, Eric Webster, was going to be out for 3 weeks. So they asked me to come into Bloomington right off Xerxes and do sports updates for Jesse the Body Ventura, wow, Dan Cole the Common Man,
right,
and Chad and Barrero. So I came in and, I didn't really know how to do a sports update. I mean, I'd never done radio, so I kind of did it my way and with a different kind of flair than I guess they were used to here, and they liked it. So I leave in September of 97 to go back to Northern California to call races. And Canterbury and KFAN, Randy Sampson, the boss at one of my best friends at Canterbury, and KFAN got together and said, let's put something together and bring Paul back here. So, I didn't have a contract in Northern California. I really never had a contract in my life until my first one at KFAN in 98. So they put a little deal together, and I left Northern California to come to what was then AM 1130 KFAN,
right,
and the PA and Dubé show.
Oh yeah.
And we were doing Sidekick Saturdays. We were going to have a show at 6 because Jesse had no chance. I mean, there's no way he was going to become the next governor of the state of Minnesota. But like I said, if I look at my life over the totality of it and the dots of divinity that honestly had to add up, Jesse had to win. Yeah. PA and Dubé had to get the job. PA and Dubé had to win with the job. And then the Vikings became bored with WCCO. I think that started in 2000, where the Vikings wanted to do an internet broadcast, and CBS, which at that time owned CCO, maybe still does, well, they wouldn't do any kind of .com with the game call. So a couple of vice presidents for the Vikings came over to KFAN, the competitor, obviously, and said, yeah, we need somebody to do Vikings games all at home, most on the road, some off TV, for Vikings.com for all of our fans around the world pining for it. So Greg Swedberg, who's still one of my bosses and one of my great friends there, Greg walked into a room with like 10 people and said, here's the deal. Who wants to do the play-by-play? And I said, I will. And I'd never done play-by-play. So I got a chance to do some games for the .com in 2000, went for the job in 2001, lost to Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, who ran into some problems with the local chapter of the NAACP for some things that he said on his radio show in San Diego. So he did one preseason game, then he was out. So they needed me on a day's notice to call a preseason game at Metrodome, which I did.
Wow.
Well, after that game, I'm driving to my house from the state fair, and one of the vice presidents, Mike Kelly, calls me and says, we're going to give you the job as the play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Vikings.
Wow.
I'm like, ain't no stopping us now. Well, the problem is Red McCombs, the owner of the team, then called KFAN and the Vikings and said, no. You guys, whomever made that first hire, embarrassed the bleep out of me, so I'm making the hire now.
Wow.
And he hired his best friend's son, Terry Stembridge, who was calling, I believe, what was then D-League basketball and Austin P baseball. And Terry came up here, and it was on KFAN. So now I'm doing Vikings Fan Line in the pregame show, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And Terry just wasn't very good, But I think the key here is handling the loss with aplomb and not going on PA and Dubé or Fan Line and being like, this sucks. Well, because I didn't know if I was better or not because I'd never done it.
Sure.
Well, it played out, and then they gave me the job in 2002. And, after my first 2 years, very, very raw. I'm emotional now, but it was an untrained emotional raw. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if Red McCombs liked it that much, but Red always had a way of keeping people on their toes. So I was able to persevere through those first 2 years. And here we are 21 years later, and I still have the job. And, when you ask me that question, and I'm like, I have these jobs only through the grace of God, because it's my first radio job starts in a major market. I auditioned for a National Football League job, and I win. Yes. And I've been a racetrack announcer for 30 years. So it's unbelievable how it all came together. I love it here. I've always loved it here. And now I've managed to hold these jobs for anywhere between 21 and 29 years.
It's amazing. And you referenced 2003. The end of that year was one of your most famous calls, the Josh McCown play against the Cardinals.
Yeah, Red McCombs hated that.
I'm sure he did. We all loved it though, because it was. It's raw, and that is that's kind of your style. Obviously, like you said, it's been refined a lot over the years, but you still wear your emotions to a certain degree on your sleeve. That is how you that's how you come to the game. That's how that's the energy you bring. And I think the people who really enjoy it immensely. And I do a lot when I'm listening to the broadcast, and I happen to catch part of Saturday's game on the radio because I was kind of between things. I actually heard the tying touchdown and the 2-point conversion. That was the call I heard from you. But you've had so many calls this year. I mean, the Buffalo game where you got some love from LeBron and some of the other people saying that this guy's a treasure. Like there's been so many games this year where the emotion, it's real to you no matter what. But this year, it's elevated just the way they're winning these games.
Well, I know you said this is audio, but first and foremost, Gabe Henderson with the Vikings Entertainment Network gave me a Christmas gift today. Look what he gave me. A coffee cup.
It's a LeBron tweet. I love it.
The LeBron tweet.
That's awesome. I love it.
LeBron could have written great call. Same. I know, right? Great energy, whatever. But he wrote my name. It was just incredible that Thursday morning I cracked open my computer and I saw that. I think the only way to describe it is this is my first play-by-play job at any level. And it's my only play-by-play job outside of 2 wild games I called last year that I've done at any level. Yeah. So I didn't travel around the country hearing other people's styles, and inherently pilfering styles. So, a lot of the catchphrases that I use, and he's loose or left in the wake of a keen turn of speed, things like that, I pulled from horse racing.
Sure.
So again, there are no play-by-play guys in the NFL, maybe ever, who also are racetrack announcers, and a horse race builds a crescendo. Yes. Well, every play in a National Football League game builds a crescendo. So it's the same. It's just a play is shorter than a race. So God kind of wired me to be tailor-made for this. So therefore, I figured I'm going to take some of these calls from horse racing that nobody's ever heard. They're mine, so I'm not stealing it, and put it into NFL games. And people seem to like it. It's like, and they're racing. Michael Rand pops out of the gate, takes the 3-length lead. Here they come down the stretch, da-da-da, da-da-da, at the wire. Michael Rand wins by a nose. Man, okay, so there's a crescendo.
Yes.
In a football game, Cousins takes the snap, takes the handoff to Dalvin, shakes the shoulders, looks left, and he fires to JJ at the 20. Crescendo.
Yes.
So the art of the profession, the language means a lot to me. Being and you work in the newspapers, I think you really appreciate this. The 5 years that I spent at the Pasadena Star News, 1988 to 1993.
Okay.
Most of it was on the desk where I was compiling the agate page, and I had a pica pole and the whole thing. Sure. And I was reading everybody's stories coming in and editing them to become more pithy. So therefore, over those 5 years, because I'm not a big reader, but over those 5 years, I just became really, really secure with the language, really comfortable with different ways to turn phrases and how to take elongated sentences and eliminate like the word that, or, to change a non-essential clause, or not speak in split infinitives. And, things like that always mattered to me. And, I just don't think, I'm not saying because they don't matter as much to other people as they do me. My sound inherently is different than everybody else. Yeah. So, God wired me to be unique in the first place with just the way I am, I guess, but it's naturally me. And these games this year, man, 10 one-point games or one-score games, the Buffalo game and the Indianapolis game. Yeah. Most teams around the NFL don't get games like that. They don't get games like that over 15 years. No. And we've had two of them
in the last month. Yeah.
I'm just ready to go. It takes about a good 6 to 10 hours to get the game calling depth chart ready. Again, you can see it. This is the game calling depth chart that has nothing on it. But by the time we play the game, it's going to be all filled. So it's very important to me to have different nuance-related information as opposed to just sharing, he's JJ, that's his 8th touchdown of the season, 7 by air, 1 by land, and the Vikings lead by 6. Everybody can get that.
Right.
But like with Greg Joseph, it's he walks up to win the Indy game, and the analyst lays out, and I say Greg Joseph has 3 walk-off winners in his career, 2 with the Minnesota Vikings, his last 55 weeks ago in this building against Green Bay. So just adding little things like that matters a lot to me, and hopefully the listeners enjoy it.
I think they do, but I think one couple final things for you, Paul, really enjoying this conversation. Anybody who spends any amount of time in the public spotlight, you're putting yourself out there every single day, there's going to be detractors. How do you handle feedback that's, whether you're online, wherever you are, that's the people that don't like you or don't like your style?
Well, I've done this so long, Michael, that I'm going to get people who rip me up. You're a homer, Barney the Purple Dinosaur, just whatever they want to say, they can say, because I know I'm not as bad ever as what they say. But then on the other side of it, the majority will be just overly rhapsodizing what I do into a microphone calling these games. Well, I'm not that good either. So, but just being a Christian and having the opportunity to share the gospel whenever I get that opportunity, the chiding, the criticism, and I guess the persecution, that I face and get from that hits me much harder than what people's opinions are of my calls. And I try to get dialogue going on it and stuff like that, but people will just disappear. So that hits me in a different way. And that's really, it's social media type stuff. So when I say persecution, that's why I put it in quotations. Seriously, like I'm really going to trip out over that. But I guess it hurts me to a certain extent, where if somebody's like, your calls suck, you're a homer, and you're awful, well, that's elevator music, in one ear, out the other.
Sure.
It has to be. When your life's predicated on 3 microphone related jobs,
yes.
If you start believing the hype or believing the praise and or getting caught up in the negativity, well, then you might as well quit because you're going to obsess over it. And I'm cracking a different microphone seemingly every day.
Right.
And whether I'm having personal problems, whether I'm unhappy with things at work, whether my 22-year-old son or 19-year-old daughter are having problems in their lives, which really would hurt me. When I hit on Michael Rand and whomever has taken time to listen to these games or listen to the 9 to noon show on KFAN or a race call, well, you're there for your diversion, okay? And you've taken time to listen to me and us. So that supersedes whatever spot I'm in personally or professionally, to just pray and take a deep breath and recognize there are people who may have far worse things going on in their lives.
Yes.
And they might want to laugh, and they might want to hear touchdown JJ. They might want to hear something guttural and something that makes them really happy. So that really is the guiding force for me during pretty much every microphone related job I do.
Last thing for you, and put you on the spot. Taking aside anybody who's on the current roster, because I don't think that's fair. Do you have a favorite Viking that you've gotten to know or gotten to cover over the years?
It's impossible to answer simply because there have been so many moments over so many years that have touched me in so many different ways. Corey Chavis, a former safety, is somebody that I've just always looked up to, and I have a ton of respect for him.
Sure.
Chad Greenway and I have become very good friends over the years. Likewise for Ben Lieber. When I see Brooks Bollinger, we get it on pretty well. Likewise with Steve Hutchinson, Adrian Peterson. In 2014 with Adrian, that I think it was 14 or 15. 2015 was very difficult. Obviously, the situation with his son was deplorable, and it was awful looking and everything. But I'm the first to say that if this is not up to me or you to judge him, you can if you want, but the ultimate judgment comes from God. So let's just stop right there with these. He needs to be flogged and stuff like that or whatever. But it hurt me because Adrian was always so good to my kids and always so good to my charities and just a very kind, fun-loving guy with me. And, so I always had a lot of respect and have a lot of respect for Adrian, more so with what he did with my charities. It just goes on and on, man. There are just so many. There are just so many relationships that I've had with like Bob Hagan and media relations here, all the media relations guys and Carly Bonk and some vice presidents like Lester Bagley and Kevin Warren, now the commissioner of the Big Ten. Kevin and I are very close. Yeah, Kirk Cousins and I, we pretty much only talk Bible or faith and stuff like that, but I really, really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot from him and his father, Don. It's an impossible question to answer.
That's why I asked it, because I didn't think it would have a clean answer, but I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate everything here because I really do enjoy your work. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and I appreciate you taking the time, especially in this season. That you got so much going on, but also it is the perfect opportunity because I don't know where this year's going, but it's been a lot of fun so far.
Likewise, Michael, big follower of yours from afar with your work at the Star Tribune, and I appreciate the interest, and I'm here if you ever need anything.
Appreciate it, Paul. Take care.
Thank you, Michael. Bye-bye.
Really enjoyed that conversation with Paul Allen from KFAN and Vikings, obviously, radio network, play-by-play voice. Just really interesting to hear how his style came about, how he'd never really done this, how he just kind of grew into the role. Also fascinated me after talking to Henry Lake a few weeks ago, too, now with WCCO Radio, but started out with KFAN in a large part. Both of them owing the start of their career, at least, to the rise of Jesse Ventura to governor of Minnesota. Did not realize that was the kind of the ultimate connection for both of them. Obviously, hard work, talent being the rest of the story and the very vast majority of the story, but sometimes you just need that one break, and interesting to hear that was the break for Paul Allen, too, that kind of the opening created by Jesse Ventura becoming governor of Minnesota, that became the big thing for him. So interesting. Hope you enjoyed that, and obviously listen to Paul Allen's PA's calls on the radio if you are listening that way. Let's finish with the cooler. Sam Steele for the Wild. I feel like I just wanted to kind of do a Sam Steele appreciation riff here just for a minute, because guy who signed with the Wild for a 1 year, $825,000 contract, not the highest risk move, obviously, and not the most coveted offseason free agent. He was let go by Anaheim, I believe. But the kind of guy the Wild needs in a season like this and for the seasons going forward, because a lot of their cap tied up with not just their own contracts, but with the paying out the buyouts to Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. And he's been really good lately. Ever since joining the Zuccarello Kaprizov line, I think he's got 4 goals and 6 assists in 14 games. Just been really solid for them. He's been at the center of a lot of good things for them. As soon as he made the jump to that line is kind of when they took off. I believe they are 12-2 since he made the switch at 11-3 since he made the switch to that line. So just kind of interesting to see the impact he's had, not just him, obviously, playing with Zuccarello and Kaprizov's going to make a lot of guys better, but he seems to have given them that bridge in that role and been a very important player for them this season. So, a guy who was not on my radar at all to begin the season, like I said, and just time to appreciate him because he's the kind of guy they need this year, and he's the kind of guy who has delivered for them this season. That'll do it for today. Should have plenty of talk coming up on Thursday's show. Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune expected to join me to talk about Gopher football recruiting. Signing day is today. I'm sure I'll have plenty of thoughts about the Wolves and Wild, too, both of them back in action, and maybe more fallout from the Carlos Correa news. Until then, enjoy yourself, have a safe Wednesday, and we'll see you again tomorrow.